Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. So today we're talking about 20 perfumes that defined the 20th century. So it was really hard creating this list because obviously there are so many perfumes that I wanted to include, and I'm sure I left a lot out, but I had to round it down to 20 perfumes that defined the 20th century. So first on my list is Yardley English Lavender perfume. Yardley's signature scent is English Lavender, which was launched in 1873. English Lavender was popular during the Victorian era in England and was imported to the USA in the 1880s, where it became popular in American households. In 1967, British model Twiggy became the face of Yardley, which is a huge significance in the 20th century for fashion and beauty, which made Yardley top on the list. And Twiggy was super famous in the 1960s in swinging London and just became an icon in terms of fashion. The top notes of Yardley are rosemary, eucalyptus, lavender, and bergamot. Middle notes are clary sage, cedar, and geranium. And the base notes are tonka bean, musk, and oak moss. So Yardley English Lavender is the first perfume on the list. Next on the list is Guerlain Mitsouko. And this perfume has notes of peach and jasmine and the flowers of May rose. And I quite like this fragrance. It's very mysterious and unique, but I feel like it really defined the early 20th century. That's why it's included on the list. And Jean Harlow loved this perfume. Next on the list is Chanel No. 5. And this one was launched in 1921. And it was compounded by the Russian-French perfumist and chemist Ernst Buch. And the notes are neroli, ylang-ylang, bergamot, as well as iris, jasmine, rose, and lily of the valley. And the base notes are musk, sandalwood, patchouli, oak moss, amber, and vanilla. And obviously Chanel No. 5 is pretty much the most famous perfume of the 20th century in my opinion, mainly because it just kind of stood the test of time and kind of kept up with advertisement throughout the decades. Next on the list is another Guerlain perfume, and this one is Vol de Nuit. And it stands for night flying, and this one was created in 1933. And this one is named after a novel called Night Flight, which was a fragrant story of love and romance of the first years of aviation. And it has a cocktail of blended floral notes which almost resembles fireworks. There's daffodil, violet, carnation, jasmine, and rose. And it's kind of an exotic woody fragrance. I quite like it. It's really nice and kind of resembles something that would be popular in the 1930s. Next on the list is Elizabeth Arden Bluegrass, and this one was created between 1934 and 1936 by the perfumer of Fragonard, and this was to celebrate the scent of grassy pasture fields where Arden bred her famous thoroughbreds. And the top notes are lavender, neroli, orange, and bergamot. Heart notes are jasmine, rose, carnation, tuberose, and narcissus. Base notes benzoin, musk, and tonka. And Bluegrass is still available today, and it's definitely a perfume that defined the 1930s. Next on the list is Shalimar, and this is Guerlain's most famous perfume in my opinion, and this one has been around since 1925. And apparently in the 1920s a lot of flappers wore this perfume. It was a very popular, it was kind of known to be worn in speakeasies and by flappers, and it has a very kind of warm scent to it with vanilla and tonka bean, as well as kind of like a breeze of freshness with powdery notes of iris, jasmine, and rose. I quite like this fragrance. It really settles nicely onto the skin and works both for male and female. Next on the list is a 1940s fragrance. This one is worn by Judy Garland, and it's Carven Ma Griffe, and this one is from 1946. And it was created by Nose Jean Carles, who apparently lost his smell at the time when he made this perfume. And the top notes are clary sage, bergamot, galbanum, adelides. Middle notes are gardenia, jasmine, ylang ylang, and rose. And the base notes are cinnamon and tonka bean. Next on the list is another 1940s fragrance, and this is Nina Ricci L'Air du Temps. And this one is a very beautiful fragrance. I quite like it. It's one of my favorites, and it was created by the French fashion house Nina Ricci. And it was launched in 1948 by the French perfumer Francis Fabron. And the top notes are bergamot, peach, rosewood, neroli, and carnation. The heart notes are gardenia, jasmine, May rose, ylang ylang, orchid, lily, clove, and orris. And the base notes are musk, vetiver, benzoin, cedarwood, oak moss, sandalwood, and cardamom. And this is a quite lovely fragrance, and it really defines the 1940s in my opinion. Next on the list is Fracas, and this one was launched in 1948 and was reissued in 1998. It's a very intoxicating Parisian fragrance, known for its refined simplicity and an object for desire for women all around the world. And it's a very popular fragrance among old Hollywood, and it was very popular in the 1960s as well, especially in the New York kind of art scene. Edie Sedgwick loved Fracas, and it was just a very popular fragrance. Even Natalie Wood wore Fracas. Very glamorous, at the same time modern and provocative, and is also ultra feminine and sexy. The top notes are bergamot, mandarin, hyacinth, as well as green notes. The heart notes are jasmine, orange flower, lily of the valley, white iris, rose, violet, carnation, peach, pink geranium. And the base notes are musk, cedar, moss, sandalwood, vetiver, just to name a few. And next on the list is Taboo, and this one was created by Jean Carles in 1932, and it's a very well-known fragrance. It kind of has like a darker side to it with a kind of an unusual combination. It's very sensual and shocking at the same time. And it has citrus and spicy notes, as well as flowers like jasmine and rose and ylang ylang. And it's a warm oriental fragrance, and it has precious woods and sandalwood and patchouli in it. And Dorothy Dandridge wore this perfume, and I quite like it. It's really nice, and it kind of has a mysterious jazzy vibe to it. Next on the list is Wind Song, and this one is from the 1950s. It was a very popular perfume in the 50s, and it's by Prince Matchabelli, and it was launched in 1952. So the top notes are neroli, bergamot, lemon, mandarin, coriander, orange leaf, and tarragon. The heart notes are iris, clove, carnation, jasmine, ylang ylang, rose, and rosewood. The base notes are cedarwood, sandalwood, amber, musk, benzoin, and vetiver. And this perfume was designed by Prince George Matchabelli, who was apparently an amateur chemist. And he was a Georgian prince and Georgian ambassador to Italy, but fled the Soviet Union and immigrated to the United States after the Russian Revolution. So it was a very popular perfume in the 1950s. Next on the list is Evening in Paris. This one was originally launched in 1928, and it was created by Ernst Buch. And he was a French perfumer for Bourjois. He also created Chanel No. 5. And Bourjois, the makeup company, started in 1863, where they made makeup and face powders. And Bourjois has been making perfumes since the 1900s. And Evening in Paris was originally sold in a cobalt blue bottle designed by Jean Hilou. And this was considered one of the world's most romantic fragrances. It was very popular as well in the 1950s and 60s. My mom says she remembers getting Evening in Paris for Christmas one year. And the notes are sunny apricot, bergamot, peach, green notes, and violet. The middle notes are Damascus rose, jasmine, heliotrope, ylang ylang, and lily of the valley. And the base notes are amber, musk, sandalwood, and vanilla. And next in the list is another 1950s fragrance, and this one is by Estee Lauder, and it's Youth Dew, and this one was launched in 1953. And Estee Lauder wanted to find a way for women to buy their own perfume, and this is when she launched Youth Dew Bath Oil and doubled it as a skin perfume. And this innovation took the cosmetic industry by storm, changing the way fragrance was sold and transforming the company into a multi-million-dollar business. So Youth Dew almost put Estee Lauder on the map. And the notes in Youth Dew are spicy notes, bergamot, peach, and orange. And the heart notes are clove, ylang ylang, cinnamon, rose, orchid, jasmine, and carnation. The base notes are amber, frankincense, benzoin, vanilla, patchouli, oak moss, musk, and vetiver. I personally find Youth Dew to be very strong, but I notice if you just put a little bit on, spritz it in the air and walk through it, it kind of gives you a really nice scent, but you have to wait for it to settle. I have a lot of appreciation for this perfume because of the history behind it, and I feel like I'm convincing myself that I want to like it more, but I feel like it grows on you over time, and I just really appreciate how old it is and the history behind Youth Dew. Next on the list is Bal à Versailles, and this one was created by Jean Desprez. And it is made with the purest, most expensive natural ingredients. It has more than 300 of them in it, and he composed this masterpiece in 1962. And for the past decades, the original formula has been held in safekeeping by the perfumers in France. And it's a very feminine perfume, and it's very high-end. Elizabeth Taylor loved it, and apparently Michael Jackson also wore it. And the top notes are bergamot, lemon, mandarin, and neroli. Heart notes are lily of the valley, lilac, iris, jasmine, ylang ylang, and leather, which is an interesting combination. Base notes are cedarwood, sandalwood, vanilla, benzoin. And that is just to name a few of the notes, because there are many. Next on the list is a very iconic fragrance that kind of turned the 1940s into the 50s. It was kind of post-war, and this is Miss Dior, and this was created in 1947 when Christian Dior launched the new look. This perfume was created by Jean Carles, and the top notes are Adelaides, gardenia, clary sage, and bergamot. The middle notes are carnation, iris, orris root, jasmine, neroli, lily of the valley, rose. And the base notes are leather, sandalwood, amber, patchouli, oak moss, and vetiver. And to me, this is kind of the perfume that almost ended the first 50 years of the 20th century and kind of broke through to the next 50 years. It symbolized so many things. It symbolizes post-war, it symbolized the new fashion look. It was a really tipping point in the history of perfume, in my opinion, and it's a very significant perfume for the 20th century. And next on the list, we're jumping all the way into the 1970s. And this perfume, to me, was so advertised in the 1970s onward, and it is a huge cultural significance in the 20th century. And this is Revlon Charlie, and this perfume came out in 1973. It was launched in an ad campaign that featured a model, Shelly Hack, wearing a pantsuit. And the woman changes from a dress into a pantsuit, and this was kind of meant to advertised towards the more modern, independent, and liberated woman. And I'm watching that show Miss America right now, and it takes place around the same time as Charlie was launched, and this is huge in the history of women's rights and equal rights movement. So now it kind of makes sense that this perfume was launched during that time period, targeted towards women's equal rights and liberation. Next on the list is perfume, in my opinion, that defined the 1980s. And this is Giorgio Beverly Hills. And in the 1980s in the United States, it was all about affluence, showing off, kind of the height of commercialism in the United States. And this one was founded by an American brand called Giorgio Beverly Hills. And the founders are Fred and Gail Heyman. And this one was actually founded in 1961, but it was very popular in the 80s. And then the perfume is named after a luxury boutique in Beverly Hills with a sunny yellow and white striped awning in the overhang of the front of the store, and the perfume's package resembles that front awning of the store. This was the most iconic perfume in the 1980s. The middle notes are ylang ylang, tuberose, gardenia, jasmine, rose, orchid. And the base is a warm sandalwood, patchouli, vanilla, amber, cedar, oak moss, and musk. And another significant perfume from the 20th century is Quelques Fleurs, pardon my pronunciation, but this one was interesting because it was the inspiration for the creation of Chanel No. 5 in 1925. And this perfume was introduced in 1912, And it was the first true multi-floral bouquet ever created. So this is why this perfume has such a significance in the making of perfumes in the 20th century, because it was the first of the kind. Before, perfumes had a single flower note and were blended with herbs and other essences. And this perfume was a true innovation of the time and kind of established the way fragrances were made going forward, with different classifications, and influenced other compositions for years to come. So this is one of the most significant perfumes of the 20th century in terms of its kind of background and the way it was created. The most important notes are the top notes, which are bergamot, tarragon, and lemon. The heart notes are tuberose, lily of the valley, violet absolute, rose absolute, ylang ylang, carnation, orange blossom, lilac, and clove. And the base notes are tonka bean and orris. Honey, heliotrope, vanilla, oak moss, sandalwood, cedarwood, and musk. Another notable famous perfume from the 20th century is Joy. And it was created by Jean Patou. And this one was created in 1929. And this one is considered to be one of the greatest fragrances created of all time and was a landmark in the floral genre of perfume. And the scent was initially launched in 1930, and it was a reaction against the kind of economy crashing and going into the 1930s, and it was considered one of the most expensive perfumes in the world. Top notes are peach, leafy greens. Heart notes are rose, jasmine, ylang ylang, lily of the valley. Base notes are sandalwood, musk, and civet. Last but not least on the list is Arpège by Lanvin. And this one is another 1920s perfume. And this one was launched in 1927 and kind of went alongside with other Lanvin perfumes like My Sin and Scandal. And the fragrance is composed with notes of Adelaide's peach, bergamot, orange blossom, honeysuckle, iris, rose, jasmine, ylang ylang, coriander, mimosa, geranium, sandalwood, patchouli, vanilla, and musk. And I quite like this series of Lanvin perfumes, and they really do define the 1920s and the kind of first half of the 20th century. I jumped around a little bit in terms of when the perfumes were made. I didn't want to start from the earliest and go all the way to the latest. I kind of wanted to start earlier on and talk about some significant perfumes, and then kind of talk about some ones in the later 20th century, and then move back to the earliest 20th century. There are also other notable perfumes like CK1 and Clinique Happy that were very prominent in the 1990s, but for the most part I feel like I covered kind of a large variety of perfumes that were very popular and significant in the 20th century. I'd love to do this video for other centuries, so let me know if you want to see more in the comments below. Alright, I'll see you guys again soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!